Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Sabai, and I will be your host for today and tomorrow Forum Days. So welcome back. For those who got to sleep in and just arrived, welcome to ArabNet 2017. I hope you all had your coffee and teas because we have an exciting day ahead of different, very diverse topics from fintech, digital healthcare, different trends and digital trends happening this year, what's here to stay, what's going to be happening in the future, and what's gone. So for those who haven't yet downloaded the app, we have an app for the conference that is going to be super updated with the agenda and will allow you to network live with people here at the conference. So definitely download it if you haven't already. Also happening today and for the first time at ArabNet is Banking Innovation Day. That is a separate registration process. So if you've registered for Banking Innovation Day, then definitely go to the convention center because that's where it's happening. Okay, so let's get on with the show. We're going to start with a more general panel to discuss some of the latest trends, digital trends this year. We have artificial intelligence, virtual reality, smart homes, all sorts of changes happening in different industries around the world. And so we're going to be exploring them with a great panel of leading investors. Moderating this panel is Melissa June Rowley. Melissa she works at the intersection of tech, entrepreneurship, media, and activism, social impact. She is the CEO of Humanise and the co-founder of the Toolbox, chaired by iconic musician Peter Gabriel. Toolbox and Humanise work on promoting human rights through technology and storytelling. So please help me welcome our moderator, Melissa June Rowley, who will then introduce the panelists.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our panel today on the hottest trends in digital media in 2017. Before we get started, we're going to show a short video on some of the most recent investments in the region. Thank you for showing that recap of the video. It's really exciting to see all the different acquisitions and investments going on in the region. From a broader perspective, what we're seeing globally is that AI, VR, AR, IoT, all the acronyms, blockchain, and self-driving cars are poised to disrupt not only the way that we live at home, but also change the way we are in transit and change the future of work. Most of you probably are familiar with the fact that in the worlds of digital media and technology, these sectors can be really noisy, and it's hard to determine what the hype is and which sectors are actually going to have a long-term lasting effect and impact. So to help us figure that out, I'm going to invite my esteemed panelists to the stage. That's you guys. So we have Raphaël Crouan, who's the CEO of Startupbootcamp IoT, and Ali Babaogla, who is an angel investor in VR, AR, and e-commerce. Check. Hi. Is this working?
That works.
I'm going to have to position myself kind of strangely here. So with that in mind, talking about the different trends, you're both investors. What do you do to determine what's hype and what's actually going to be a long-term imprint in tech?
So let me just take 2 minutes to introduce myself, first of all. Good morning, everyone. So Raphaël Crouan, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Startupbootcamp, and we are an accelerator across the world. We got about 17 programs around the world, ranging from Asia to the US. And what we do is we take young companies to market, and we help them scale very quickly by putting them in touch with corporate partners, with investors themselves, as well as with a set of key mentors. So to answer about your questions, my particular focus is around IoT in particular and connected devices. But this is, as you mentioned before, quite a noisy scene. We've seen, and it's one of the key acronym and trends of this last 2 or 3 years. How do we, find the right ones? How do we sort of cut the noise out, right? Because it's a very noisy environment. It takes quite a lot of work, and the first of it is don't trust just a business plan or an idea. When you look at the companies, when you look at what they are and who they are, it's about the team in general. So we focus our attention in a segment, then we reduce the segment by sub-verticals. And in our case, recently, what we've seen is the importance of the business-to-business market versus the business-to-consumer market. So that's one of the areas. Is first of all, you look at the teams that are of the different proposition that we have, as well as looking down the line at the different sub-segments that you want to cut through, because this is where you're going to see the real value.
Thank you. Ali?
Yes. I can also start by introducing myself. I am Ali Babaogla from Istanbul, Turkey. I spent nearly 10 years of my lifetime in corporate site, and my last day job was in LinkedIn. I was the responsible for Turkish market. Then in last 2-3 years, I am in angel investment site. I am making investments on my own and attending with different groups in Turkey and in the European side. For me, I am just still learning. I am just still trying to understand what is the upcoming concepts into the tech businesses, like IoT, like AR, like AI, and like different kind of words. They are all trying to come to our lives, but I try to look how they affect our lives now and the future. So I try to see if there is a current need that they are fixing now, and if there is a future potential that a company is getting bigger and bigger, and it changed the behaviors on the life of us. So I made one investment in AR. It is AR Pandora, and I saw someone outside, and they are playing something with putting some glasses. So I don't know that if you understand what he is doing, but you need to try and see what he sees and what he is trying there. So, but now I believe that this is a future technology which is the first steps that they had, and now it's going to be bigger and bigger soon, which I'm going to give in details after in the panel.
So I think it was about maybe 7 years ago, 5-7 years ago, when everything was location, mobile, social, slow-mo, and that has, its location is still really relevant in terms of transportation with things like Uber and Lyft, but now VR, AR are pushing to the forefront as well as AI. In terms of how people playing in those spaces are going to survive, what do you think it's going to take? Is it going to take more integration and crossover into different platforms, or will these things stand on their own?
So the cycle of evolution of technology are very interesting to look at, right? Because you start from a non-connected world to a very small connected world, then to the world of smartphones and over-connected world where location-based services are key, then to putting a bit of intelligence in that, and then you get services like Uber that you mentioned that automatically not only localize you but give you instant access to intelligence based on your type of trips that you have done in the past, the type of cars you tend to have, the locations that you have stored in your devices, etc., etc. Then you get to the next phase, which is wherever you are in the world, you can leverage that ecosystem to be able to order whatever you need. So one of the recent trends that we've seen in terms of integrating those technologies is customer satisfaction through the use of AI, intensive AI in customer services. So Netflix, for example, which is very famous around the world, is using a very advanced algorithm to define your tastes based on your regular use and consumption of their media. And of course, it's a fantastic source of data analytics for them. They can actually know their customer base better than anybody else through that particular service and an algorithm. Now, in the back of this, without AI or machine learning, as we used to call them now, artificial intelligence, it's a great way of computing that data and making it an even more powerful machine. So it's a good example of how you could get better customer satisfaction by getting them the exact type of medium content they need, preempting their needs basically based on artificial intelligence. That should answer your question, though. But
yes, you did. So Ali, I saw you nodding your head up and down, yes. But back to what we were speaking about earlier and how do you cut through the noise. Now there are a slew of startups that are pitching investors left and right around their different AI platforms, around their different AI integration services. What do you as investors look for products and services to actually take the time to listen to?
For me, also for your first question, I think the Solomo thing is the thing that started everything. I really think with the Solomo we are start to think out of the box, and that kind of apps that we are using daily on our phones are start to get developed. It's social, it's local, and it's mobile. And now it is the era that we are looking to do this tech, as Ralph mentioned, in IoT, in AI, in different sectors, to come, I don't know, in 5-10 years to be the part of our daily life. So I think we are in that part. So for your second question, Melissa, I am looking, as an angel investor, I am looking the opportunities there for augmented reality. Augmented and virtual reality as the words. But I think the first thing that you tried is Pokemon Go. I don't know if any one of you played it or not, but thanks to Pokemon Go, it is now easy to give the informations about AR and VR to the people on the road in all over the world. So for AR and VR side, I am as an opportunity I am looking into. It was started like this. It was started with the games. It was started with the, as you see outside, with the glasses, etc. But now it is becoming the part of the life. I have a video that I showed to Melissa and Ralph about 4D T-shirts. This is one of the projects that my company AR Pandora did in Turkey, Istanbul. It is a live T-shirt. You can search for 4D T-shirts online and you can see the examples. It is just a T-shirt. This is the biggest retail brand in textile in Turkey, and they want us to design a T-shirt for them if somebody puts the phone on it and it starts to play. And it starts to be a phenomenon in Turkey, in a phenomenal, and lots of the children, they want to buy it. And you know, nearly 20, 30 years ago, in Turkey, I remember that there are shoes with the lights that every children wants to buy it. Now it's a T-shirt integrated with the technology. So I look at opportunities like that way. If any kind of that AR, VR, AI, what is the word? Is it is going to affect our life now? And is there a potential in the upcoming futures for my region?
Do you want me to take on that as well?
Yes, please.
So, Startupbootcamp invests in early stage companies. So we are looking at companies with a product, with an existing working prototype, and we take them up to Series A, into a level of investment. What does that mean? It means that effectively those are formed companies with an existing product or close to a marketable product. That also means that they need to have an understanding of their market, where they want to be, but we help them through the line of, getting through the market plan, business plan, market strategy and growth plan, basically. We invest in various different segments, from fintech to insurance tech to food tech to digital commerce to digital health and all those different things. We have a smart transportation program in Berlin. I know we want to touch a bit on autonomous car, for example. And the focus I'm particularly looking into right now, as I mentioned earlier, is about IoT connected devices. Now, the way we look at this market, and that to answer your particular question, how do you find those guys? And how do you decide on the investment strategy? There's a couple of key factors for us. The first one is the segment. We want to be vertical, and I just said, and that's one of the first thing, but you need to drill down to a low level in terms of selection process, because you can't just say, I'm investing in IoT. That's way too big. You can invest in everything in IoT. So you need to sub-segment that. And the way we've looked at it is the B2B and the B2C, the business to business and the business to consumer market. Very quickly, when everybody was talking about IoT 3 to 4 to 5 years ago, the very first thing that pops in mind, I'm sure everybody will know that, is wearables, right? It's the consumer side of IoT. It's the very first sort of things that people would see as defined as Internet of Things and connected devices. Now, it's evolved a lot over the last few years, and now you have tremendous amount of really valuable and tangible applications that are changing the lives of people, not only through now, digital health wearables, but also down the line to business application in smart energy, smart transportation, smart retail, smart, manufacturing. So we look at all those different segments, and then out of those, we define the companies that have a very specific IP. Investing in a company that's a Me Too could be a winning combination. That's what Uber did, and they did pretty damn well, clearly. But, or Karim, for that matter, who's raised, $350 million, I think, recently again. But it's about getting a company at this early stage that have a very unique selling proposition, a differentiator that, for us, will be investable, that makes it specific and unique. And that's really hard to find, of course. There's not that many of them. So it's a combination of those segments that we want to look at, the unique selling proposition or the differentiators, the marketing, difference that they have, as well as I said before, the strength of the team. We don't want to invest in companies that have, a blatant lack of expertise in a particular, area. You could have an amazing idea. You could have actually the best idea in the world. If you don't have the team behind that idea to actually deliver on that promise, you're probably very likely going to fail. And so those are the key things that we're actually looking to define how we invest in those particular areas.
I want to talk to you a little bit about ethics, not your own moral ethics. That's a different conversation. But in terms of different technologies, like in VR and AR, there's a lot going on in entertainment and gaming, and the technology is moving so quickly that we're not necessarily caught up to speed with it yet, but there's a lot of questions around ethics in VR and gaming. There's a lot of ethics around AI. There's a lot of fear around AI. There's a lot of ethical questions being asked around self-driving cars and the legal aspects of things. Do you as investors pay attention to that, or do you wait for, well, what is your take on that then? I mean, how much are you paying attention to it before you make the investment, and what should the entrepreneurs in that space be looking for?
Yeah, sure. Of course, I care about this ethic, and I also take care about cultural effects about the solution, and it's going to happen in the market. So I am looking for this in different angles, not just how it is going to, because there are some digital technology trends that they are coming from United States to hear that we are also like driverless car and the other things. I believe there's an opportunity in everything. I believe first they are going to solve some problems that we live daily, and I believe that they can cause some other problems that we are not faced now and which will be happen. So I look from both angles and I try to find a middle ground for myself. And I look for, as I said, I am making self-investments, but I am also working with different groups, and I am having conversations with them, how our culture as a Turkish people fitted, and if it is effective in our region, in our culture, ethically, and all the things. So I try to make a mix about this.
I think you're touching on a very important topic because, yeah, to answer your question, of course we care, absolutely. But any changing technology or wave of technology that is going to revolutionize the industry will have not only ethics questions as well as security questions attached to it. Like we looked at that, you know, the first time I remember, I was working at Apple at the time. I worked 15 years for the company, and when we launched the iPhone back in 2007, one of the number one questions that people had is, but I'm not going to be, you know, visible and connected 24 hours a day? How's that going to work? I mean, people are going to look at me all the time. And of course, nowadays, you know, it's not even a given that everybody's got a smartphone in their pocket, or almost everybody in developed countries, but it's also something that most people have a hard time living without, right? So there's always waves of evolution and revolution that are going to be triggering those ethical questions. How do we address those is a very difficult situation because it's a timing issue. It's a sensitive timing issue. And I'm going to leave aside the political regulations story, which, you know, we cannot control, and some people are taking, you know, care of that at different levels in different countries or regions. But at our very little level as investors, one of the key things that we want to be looking at is the consciousness of the funders around the impact those technology or their product would have on people. As simple as that. And if they haven't thought that through, I think it's careless, and of course it is then a sign of them not being good enough to understand what really what's differentiating themselves from the rest of the crowd. And to touch on that as well, one of the key trends that we've seen this year, and of course, Melissa, you wouldn't know that better than anybody else, is impactful technology. This is something that we are going to be looking very actively on this year and recruiting companies that have an impact on society, environment, and all kind of different sort of important causes, because I don't think I've seen many millennials in the room. But this is a generation of people that care only about one thing in the world, is they don't give a damn about, politics much. They really don't care about how many perks they can get through their car, their companies, whether they have a smartphone or a company car or a very nice sofa to lay in. The only thing they care about is if your company is redistributing a share of their profit to competing companies, or actually to NGOs and to charities. This is what they care about in their generation, making an impact, changing, looking at the environment in the future, which is a radical change from even my generation. I don't feel old, but I'm older to them, right? And this is something that you have to look at nowadays. You cannot ignore that movement because it's absolutely critical, and it's going to be the pinnacle of the next, 20, 30 years, if not more, 50 years of our investment strategy. So we're starting to look at that this year very, very actively through the lens of IoT, finding technology that it will impact, those various different causes in the world.
So you're bringing up a really important topic. Obviously, social impact is a sweet spot for me. But beyond that, you're talking about impact not just as something to do good or maybe a CSR strategy, but you're looking at that as an actual business strategy. How can businesses, do you think, adopt that more fundamentally from the ground up?
It's a philosophy, right? So it's a mentality. As I said, those generations will do that by default because that's the number one angle they want to look at. And profit is important because the company wouldn't live without. But if you don't have that social basis, they probably wouldn't be interested about it. Now, the problem comes from the differences of perception between the corporation or the investors alike that are looking at that from the old CSR perspective, of the world, and the young generation are looking at this as the core foundation of their product or their company. And that's a divide in cultural differences that we need to bridge right now. What we do for this is we actually are launching an initiative through our program to be more advised by people that are working in that space, because I clearly don't claim of knowing everything. And there's no better people than the one that are actually in the field working constantly 24 hours a day with people that have that reality and impact. And so we're trying to look into that big time. And hopefully that will educate us even further down the line.
Thank you. Now, you're both investors who are based in London, but you're both very global. Are you investing in anything in the MENA region? And if so, what? And if not, what can people in this region do to get in front of you?
Yeah, before this, I just want to answer your last question also. I believe myself that if we think about just in the investment perspective, if we think about the money or if we think about the value that we create for ourselves, we cannot create the future. So to create the future, you first think about the social effect that this companies or this investments is going to create. Then if you create the future, you are going to earn money, you are going to earn lots of things there if you can create this. So for this, I am just following up some companies in the United States that the investment groups and the activities they made. And one is the, I don't know, maybe you heard the name Magic Leap as a company. We discussed some shares before, some thoughts before the event. I don't know if you check Magic Leap, but in investment business, being a unicorn is something very important. Being unicorn means being a company evaluated $1 billion. So Magic Leap is a company that is a unicorn now, that has more than $1 billion investment inside with no products that they have. They are just trying to create the future of AR and virtual reality now, and their biggest investor is Facebook and Google. They are competitor in somehow, but they are invested into the same thing together to create the future of this technology. So I always trying to look like this. I think it is kind of encouraging also to creating the next phases of technology with the support. So please check Magic Leap and try to understand what they are doing. I think it is the next phase of the virtual and augmented reality that they try to combine the world in a different virtual environment. So for your second question, as an investor, I have six companies now. 4 of them in Middle East. If we call Turkey is in the Middle East, I say it is in the Middle East. And most of them are doing businesses in Middle East. We have most of them has clients in Dubai, in Bahrain, in Gulf region, in different places. I hope we met some of you here and we try to make businesses in Beirut also. It's my first time here. 2 of them are in Europe, but doing businesses also with the Middle East side. So I look for this part of the world that there is a big opportunity for operation side, because if we see, I really like the word global. I don't know if you heard it before. If we see the upcoming trends and if we follow up the global trends and if we think locally, so there is a word global, I really think that there is an opportunity in this part of the world for local thinkers. If they think local and if they understand the opportunities in the market and if they see the values coming from the Silicon Valley and the other part of the world, I think there are opportunities, so I believe in it and I make investments here.
We invest everywhere. So, as I said, we have 17 programs around the world. Our ambition is to recruit globally. To give you a bit more flavor on that, this year in our London program, we had 71 countries applying, and we had close to 700 applications. Those applications, as I said, are early stage companies, and I can't remember on the top of my mind, but I came here last year as well as in Dubai and a couple of other countries in the Middle East, so we do recruit over there, everywhere basically. We also have an ambition to open a program in the Middle East. Can't say much more right now, still under wrap, but this is definitely a region that's of interest to us, and there is a tremendous amount of interesting technology out there. The only thing I would say, though, and that's been confirmed as I've seen on the screen earlier, is it tends to be that most of the companies that we see develop technology that are specifically targeted for the region, and one of the issues that we have with this is it's a massive region, but it doesn't scale outside of the region. And of course, as global investors, one of the key thing that we want to look at is we want to be able to take those companies out there, just literally everywhere. Both, could be in China, could be in Japan, could be in America, could be anywhere. But we need those products to be scalable and to be able to address other, market and adjust and MENA regions. And so that's one of the things that we want to be impactful on, and hopefully, by having a program here, drive in that direction and select the guys that actually do create something that's a little bit more global than just, don't get me wrong, local. It's still a big region to target for sure.
Thank you. On that note, I'd like to, if there are any questions, I'd like to open up to the floor for questions. Do we have a microphone for that? Yeah?
Come on, don't be shy. Okay. Can we ask a question then?
Yeah.
How many of you are entrepreneurs in the room? Raise your hands. Not enough.
Not that
we need
many.
to change that.
Not that many.
Who is in what do we call that? In the fintech business right now? Or financial institutions anyway? Many of you. Well, they're probably all at the fintech conference next door, I guess, then. Does that make sense? How many of you would like to become an entrepreneur? How many of you are thinking in the morning, waking up saying, I want to be an entrepreneur? Come on. Well, if you already are, it doesn't count, right? So, okay. Now, we talked about a few of the digital trends earlier. There's never been a better time to be an entrepreneur than now. So if you feel the need to go and do something that would change the world, please by all means do, because we need more people that do that, right? So don't be frightened. It's tough. It's a hard journey, but it's so rewarding. You got to try it. It's absolutely incredible. So if you have this tendency of looking at this saying, I want to be trying to create something, find the right partner to do it and just go and do it. It's, every day we see inspiring stories. Every day we see incredible founders that came out of nowhere, and some came out of 30 years of corporate life and just deciding one morning, that's it, I'm done with that. I want to do something else. And they went on to their own. And I think this is really something that should be done more and more and more. As a matter of fact, I'm sure you've touched upon this. We didn't talk about education, but most of education now is based upon coding, right? We see a lot of coding school around the world because the trend is when you get new graduates out of schools, universities, most of them now don't want to go in big corporations anymore. They want to go and do their own thing. And they need to be equipped with the right set of skill set, which are completely different than the one that we used to learn back in the days. And another trend we didn't touch upon, which was robotics. And
yeah, well, speaking of robotics, so I just saw Elon Musk speak in Dubai last week at the World Government Summit, and one of the things he said was that sooner than later, much sooner than people are looking to believe, robots are going to be able to do jobs better than any human on the planet very soon, and that's going to eliminate a number of jobs. We touched on it for a minute, but and that's going to have a major cultural shift.
No.
New needs will emerge. What do you think is going to happen once that shift starts to take hold?
you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. For your question, I think first I'm just thinking about to say something to you as audience, as you say, and then I like to answer the question. I really like to say that for the entrepreneurs that I met by any chance in any event or in any environment, I try to say them that don't just try to find the next big thing. Just try to fix the daily problems that you faced in your environment with the upcoming technology trends. If you can have any solutions in your hand, just try to solve it. Because when I look my portfolio now, I saw that the most successful companies in my portfolio are the ones that they are trying to solve the daily problems. Because they have a valid problem, they try to solve it, and now they have a solution. And then this solution can be valuable for different clients and different clients. So if you try to just look the opportunity or look this investment world or startup world like this angle, I think you are getting more and more successful in the first shot, because everyone can pay a valid solution if you really solve a problem. So this is what I really like to share, and I think this is really important. For the question you mentioned, I am also going to talk in Dubai next month about this internet and the technology trends, and I think in the region, in all MENA region, because I worked in LinkedIn and GE in this region a lot, and I somehow know the people and somehow know the opportunities here. I think there is a really mass opportunity here, and I think the people can do, if they, as I said, think globally. If they act as a globally, they can do lots of things here that will create value in EU and the United States, I guess.
I have one more question on that note, and this has to do more with the culture of the digital media ecosystem, tech startups as well as some of the major tech players. There is this need right now, reactive state of mind, that everybody has to be a unicorn, or that everybody has to that everybody has to respond to that, and that everybody has to have a return for their investors, and it's creating a culture in a lot of tech startups that isn't necessarily very healthy. People are rushed, people are reactive, people are pivoting every few months. As investors and as advisors for these companies, what do you suggest that these entrepreneurs do to keep their heads down and to keep humble and to keep focused?
Yeah, so return to investor, yes please. Always keen on having return on our investment, but I'm 100% with you. The unicorn movement has been more destructive than positive on the net, right? There is a massive movement emerging in the tech scene, particularly, which is driving the trends around mindfulness and actually creative. How do you call that? The consciousness of the disruption that some of those technologies can bring to the market. The tension and the pressure that's been put on funders over the last few years, with highlighting only the very big successes out there and forgetting to mention the amount of failures, has been, changing the game in a not necessarily a good direction. It's always very appealing, to see the very success of your neighbor coming from nowhere. We started with, again, Apple in a garage, and look at what it is now. Or you look at, recent companies have been unicorns, as we call them, with donkeys or whatever the name they put behind it. And at the end of the day, it's an extremely hard journey. It doesn't happen from one day to the other. You tend to see only the success, but it's 6, 7, 8 years of really hard work, sacrifices, people getting fired. It's a very lonely journey, right? There's a common knowledge on the value of death of startup curve, which generally happens even before the unicorn can even happen, if it does. So that's the first thing. Keep in mind, this is not an easy journey. So we don't push our companies to be the next unicorn. I mean, I'm not going to lie. If we find 1 or 2, we'll be extremely happy. But it's not the end goal. Our goal, and that's what I've been pushing from day one, is to find healthy founders that have a goal to sort of literally do something that would be meaningful in a more, in a healthier manner, and also that really can grow a company. For me, there's 2 kind of exits, right? You can sell your company and you become a unicorn, you can become whatever you want, or you can actually grow a business. There's nothing wrong with growing a business and becoming the next big thing, right? We've seen times and times again some companies that are growing organically, not like the Yerke curve thing that everybody's looking for, growing organically and getting into an extremely successful business size. Those are not the ones that we talk about, though. Those are not the ones that you see on the press about, tremendous success and phenomenal sort of impact and stuff. And yet, they're making a very significant amount of money and impact. So, to go back to your question, the trend that we see in the Silicon Valley and in the rest of the world now about being more mindful about your state of mind in general has been coming from that extreme pressure that unicorns have been putting on founders. And I think it's unhealthy, and we are fortunately finally coming out of that to get back to a point where you're creating a business for a reason. You just don't need to destroy your health over it. That's it.
Also, I can add something for this with a real example that I lived in my experiences in Istanbul, Turkey. There is a company named Yemek Sepeti. It's a food on click, in English, and they are delivering food via online. And in just 4 or 5 years, they are just struggling. They are just trying to fit the market. They are just trying to find customers, etc. But after 10 years, Deliver Hero, the German company, acquired it, and it is a unicorn now in Turkey. Now the team is still managing this, and I think being unicorn is just something about understanding the culture also, because I live in Ireland for 3 years, and on that time there is a company trying to do the same thing in Irish market. When I managed the LinkedIn, and I lived there, and I am still following them up, because as an Irish culture, I really like Irish people. They all like to go out. They all like to eat outside, drink outside, etc. They are more that kind of people. So that kind of startup doesn't have an opportunity to be a unicorn, as it has the market. It is not going so fast, but in Turkish culture, Yemek Sepeti can find the market, and I know the team very well, and I know he's very successful in his different businesses also. He tried to just understand the market and make, as I said, seeing the upcoming trends like internet, etc., and trying to the real problem of the city, because in Istanbul it's a hell traffic, so everything is hard. So accessing the food on time is really important. So it makes this, and it is a unicorn now. So I think culture is totally important also for that kind of things.
Okay. Thank you. We only have 1 more minute, in fact, maybe even less than that, and I might get in trouble for going over. But really quickly, one more question. So we touched on AI, VR, AR, IoT, robotics. We touched on those really briefly. What other trends are you following, and why? Really quickly. Go.
Agroponics, so everything growing food and healthy for the home, impact in general. And I think one last thing is, no, that's about it right now. Yeah.
Okay.
I really follow up AR and VR. I think it is going to be a really big opportunity there. And besides that, I am following up retail techs rather than fintech on the other thing, because I believe it is going to be the second hottest in this region, because we all kind of a part of retail chains and the things here. So I am following the retail tech.
Okay. All right. Thank you both. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you, guys.